Yo, yo, yo. I'm Candy B. I be knitting, and today I be talking about my spinning. First, I want to show you what I'm wearing. This is literally the first garment that I've ever knit myself. It's the Cancun lacy top, and I knit it out of Dollar Tree yarn, and I rarely ever wear it, but I needed something to throw on, so I looked a little bit more put together than I was before, so I'm wearing it now. So that's what this is. But I'm going to get into some spinning. Spinning is I if I had to choose between knitting and spinning, I'd probably choose spinning, but it's very feast or famine with me. Either I don't spin for months on end, or like I get into it. And recently I've been really getting into it. I don't know if it's the time of year or just the mood I've been in, but once the bug hits me, it's just go, 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 go. So I'm going to show you what I've been working on spinning wise. First things first, I think what happened was I was working on this for a very long time. And let me pull all of it over here. Oh my goodness. I have ceramics behind me. This is dyed Coriadel from RH Lindsay, and I bought a pound of it to spin for a sweater. This is going to be the main color in a colorwork sweater. I get all of it in the shot. And I've been spinning this for months on my Ashford traditional. And this was the comb topped. I talked about it in a previous episode about kind of struggling with it just a little bit because it was very compacted. And then I was having some trouble with my wheel, but we got there, got it all spun up, plied it over a course of probably I want to say 4 days it took me to ply it all. I finally have washed it and put it out to dry. It's now warm out, so I was able to put it outside for a little bit, and that always helps. It takes a long time for wool to get fully dry, and it's becoming a lot cooler and more humid inside. So I was very happy that it's been warm and sunny outside. And this is that. I was going for, this is a 3-ply worsted spin. I was going for more of a worsted weight as far as thickness goes, a size 4. It's probably closer to a sport, but I think it's going to be just fine. I find that 100% non-superwash wool, I can play around with gauge a little bit. And also I've been looking, this is for the Wintersol by Jennifer Steingass, and I have not knit one of her patterns before, but I own 2 of them because I did like a BOGO sale when she was having her sale. And from what I've heard from her patterns, usually the yoke design is different, but as far as like the grading and the sizes go, they're pretty interchangeable. And so my intention with that was to do one that's with commercial yarn first and see how her patterns work and get used to like her writing style, get used to the gauge, and then step in with the hand spun yarn, just because that's another unknown variable. But I've been reading those patterns, and her gauge seems different than what I would do, and I don't know if I'm misreading it. I'm not going to say, spell it all out right now because I might be reading it wrong, but it seems like she uses a lot smaller needles than I would. So getting a thinner yarn might not be that big of a deal, but I will still have to read the whole thing carefully again, gauge swatch. I have some commercial yarn that I want to do one sweater with and see how that plays out. But that is the plan with this. Plying it went very well. I've struggled with plying in the past because I'm just like, I want to make a balanced yarn. And just starting out when I was beginning to spin, everyone talks about, getting too much twist, over twisting, over plying, all that kind of stuff. And so I became like very self-conscious and self-aware of it, which improved my spinning because I was getting very ropey, overspun yarn. But now I've kind of tilted into the opposite direction where things are becoming underplied. And so I still feel like I'm still learning and still course correcting. And I do feel as though I actually, if I had to choose, I like the look of it being overplied more than underplied. It's more durable. I think it just looks a little bit better. It might not be as soft to work with, but I'm not really sensitive to textures in that respect. And so I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if I had to be on one side of the coin versus another. But this is washed and dried, and this is actually pretty darn balanced, actually. And I think that's a part of it too, is that when you're plying, or when I'm plying, if you add a little bit more twist than you think you need, it kind of balances itself out when you go to finish the yarn. And I finished this yarn, I put it in a hot bathtub, waited for the water to cool down, snapped it a few times, and put it outside to dry. I mentioned the last time we talked about this yarn that I was doing a 3-ply, and I was trying to match some of the older plies with some of the newer plies to balance out any consistencies over the course of the spin. I believe I did pretty well with that. Some of my middle bobbins, so it's a 3-ply, so I had my oldest, a middle, and a newest center pull ball that I was plying from. And the middle yarn cakes were much bigger, and so in some places I had to stray from what I was trying to do just to make the yardage work. But I think that's because I was fighting with my wheel, and I kind of forgot what I was doing, because at first, I started off like really weighing the yarn, because there's no point for me to fill up my whole bobbin with a single ply, because I'm going to have to end up breaking that yarn. So I was trying to just fill it up a third, because I want to do a 3-ply and want the balls to kind of be close in size. And so I was actually like kind of meticulously weighing the yarn. I was doing about 20 to 30 grams, and then somewhere in the middle I got away from that, and I was doing the bobbins were getting heavier and heavier and bigger. And then when I was getting towards the end of the spin, I remembered, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna apply this together. I need to not put so much yarn on the bobbins, and these kind of have to match it. And I started actually weighing the yarn, because I wanted to know like how much I had. And I was just like, oh, I kind of want these to be similar weights. And so I kind of course corrected. Long story short, this is how much I have left. This is a little nugget of a single ply. I guess I could have chain plied this into a very tiny mini skein. This is a pound of yarn over here, and it's a main color and a colorwork sweater. I doubt I'm gonna need even half of this, so I'm fine with this being my leftover. I actually have this plastic bin, and this is full of all of the singles I have left over when I finish plying. And so I have like little bits like this, I got bigger bits like this, and I might keep them as singles and do something with them. Last year I took a bunch of them and just did a 3-ply and 3-plied them all together just to clean out my little stash. If I'm doing a project and I start to run out of yarn, this is like my little place I go to, and I can color match certain things. Like I just have like some white in here that I can, ply up. But that's where this goes. Also, they make good leaders. They're, just a little piece of wool or yarn to get you going when you're starting off your spin. And so it's going to go in here for now. And that's that. The other yarn that I finished this week, I just have 2 mini skeins of yarn. If you all remember, I got this humongo. This is like 1.3 pounds of fiber. And this is like merino and alpaca. And I think it has a little bit of silk. It's got all kinds of stuff together. This, to me, I call this in my head or in my little notebook, this is like wet newspaper yarn to me, because it just reminds me of when you get a newspaper really wet and you scrunch it up and like all the colors start to run together, but the overall color is like gray, but you can see like just little tiny bits of color. And so I just did a little sample of that in this. And this is a 2-ply, and I did this on my drop spindle. And this is that by itself. And then I did another sample. This is a 3-ply. And this is this plus, where is it at? Oh my goodness. Oh, it's in my lap because I put it in my lap because I was like, oh, I want to talk about this. Let me put this in my lap. And then I forgot where it was. This is this. And I did a parallel draft with my drop spindle where I just fluffed these out and drafted them together. And it came out looking like this. And this is a 3-ply. And this is just me playing around. This isn't like for a project. This will probably just stay in my little fiber library, if you will, to look back on if I want to do something with that yarn. I'm thinking about doing a whole sweater of this, but I don't know if I want to just do it by itself or blend it. And so I have this to look back on this. If I play my cards right, I could probably make a hat out of this, but I haven't done any yardage or grist or anything like that. I just wanted to see how the colors worked together. And so that's that. And it just was some stuff I had laying around because I was trying to, because I like to ply on my big wheel because these were on drop spindle. I don't ply on my drop spindle. So I wanted to finish that whole project. And since I was done with that project, I was like, let me go ahead and ply this together. I'll just put that there. That's fine. And so this, I was like, oh, I could use this with this. But then I also talked about this previously. You have to like get caught up on the lore if this is your first time watching me. So this is just taupe, Taupe, like the color that I got from RH Lindsay. And this is just a bunch of wool from their fiber shed. So just in the northeast area of the United States of America, they got together and pulled together all this wool and just mixed it together. All the browns go together. And so they got this color that they call taupe, and I got a pound of this. And I was mostly going to use it to blend with some stuff. We'll get to that later. But then I was just like, this would be the perfect sweater to knit a sweater for my husband. And so I'm spinning this for a sweater. And I have like I said, I have a pound of this too. And pro tip, I forgot who I got this from. It's not a secret or anything like that. It's a pretty common thing. I keep my woolly wool like this in a pillowcase. It's just an old pillowcase. And it lets it breathe, but it keeps all the buggies and dust and stuff out. And so I am spinning that taupe, which is, there's no specific breed. It's all just mixed together wool from the Northeast, into these little mini balls on my drop spindles. And so I have a whole basket of these. And so this is just like an ongoing, whenever I have 10 to 15 extra minutes, I'm working on that. It's not like a huge rush. My husband, he has been wanting a sweater for a while. And it's just something that's just never come to, it's like, oh, it's like looking for the perfect pattern, looking for the perfect wool. And so now we're like on the path, but we're relatively patient. Like, he's picky about his fashion. I'm picky about my knitting and my spinning. And so it's really a match made in hell to be like I'm going to spin this all on drop spindles and find this, unicorn pattern that's going to be the perfect sweater. Which I think that's where the sweater curse comes from. You don't knit a sweater for your significant other or they're going to break up with you. It's like, oh, it's because it takes 2 to 3 years to plan this out. And, statistically speaking, your relationship's just not going to work out. It's not the sweater's fault. But yeah, I have my little wooden drop spindles. These are just generic beginner's drop spindles that I've been spinning that up on. It's no rush on that. I'm going to do a 2-ply just to like maximize yardage because Mr. Rulud is not a petite guy. He's relatively tall, broad shoulders. He wants something. He likes fitted clothes, but it's got to be comfortable too. I don't think he wants like a wool sweater, choking the life out of him either, so it's got to be, all the right fit. So I've been spinning that. I finished that. And I was just like, I need a brain break, because what I'm doing right now is like these, I wouldn't call them technical because I don't look at myself as a technical spinner, but I'm planning something and I'm working towards a goal, and I need something that completely is just pure vibes, pure, more artistic. And so I was just like, what am I going to do? And so I had that taupe, and this, I keep mentioning RH Lindsay because last year I did a huge order from them, and I did like a pound of all these different colors with the intention. If you didn't know what this was and you've always been looking in the background, this is a drum carder. It's for making bats, which are chunks of fiber, and so these are teeth. You comb the. I'm trying not to use the word. I guess you could say brush. Drum card. You card the fiber together. And so I wanted to make some bats for myself because I was getting very invested into hand dyed braids. And I wanted to get art bats from, indie dyers and stuff. And I was like, I think I can do this myself. I own a drum carder, and I'm a relatively creative, artistic person that likes to put energy into my creativity. And so I had gotten some red, just like they have, RH Lindsay has like just very basic solid colors. So I had some red and some taupe, and I made a bat out of that. And I was just like, let me just spin up this bat. And I started to spin it, and I just wasn't having a good time. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this really well. So this is what I got. And the color was kind of flat and boring. And I wasn't like, the whole point was I had such a rough time with that rust colored yarn, to the point where I'm just like, I am never doing a main color in spinning a main color again. Like I was beating myself up because I would buy like 1 or 2 braids of fiber and then spin it up and be like, well, what can I do with this? But then I realized I was like, I really don't want to spin a bunch of solid color fiber either. Like I would rather just go buy some Cascade 220 and mix and match it with my hand spun. But this is what the red and gray came out to be. I'm trying not to cover my face when I talk. And this was kind of dull. And so I took it back up to the lab, back to the drum carder, and I had a bag of like millins I had gotten from a Facebook de-stash, just like all kinds of random fiber. And so I ran it back through my drum carder, and it was like some silk bits. And I made a big bat, and this is the result of that. Let me show you. I have another big bag. I have my plies in that bucket, and then I have all my drum carder waste. After you brush it or drum card all that fiber, it gets stuck in the machine, so you have to clean it out. This is what that looked like. Oh, this is some of that rust. This is what that looked like. And so reds and browns, and then little dots of silky color. And so I spun that up, and I was just like, oh, this is exactly what I needed. Like my brain was just like firing on all cylinders. And so this is what it looked like on the bobbin. And I was just like, I kind of want to try to make like some art yarn, because I've been looking at some Instagram reels, and I was like, actually, it's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Or at least looking at the Instagram reels, it felt a lot easier. So a few months ago, I was at the thrift store, and I bought these. This was all a part of my plan to get more creative with my spinning. And this is Habu Textiles, and this is a thread of silk. Silk stainless is what it's called. And it's not giving me, I guess just silk stainless is what it is. And then this is some Ito, and this is silk. And this is lace weight yarn. And I wanted this not to knit with, but to do core spinning with. And so I bought some of this. And this is just like a thin, really slick piece of silk, where I found the end of it, and now I can't find the end again. So super, super, like I said, lace weight. This is lace weight too, but it's textured. And so it's got little neppy silk bits coming off of it. And so with this, it's, you apply your fiber, and then you apply a ply of your spun fiber with this. This becomes one ply of yarn. And so I did this. And so I took my bat and I chose this color because I wanted even more like contrast, even though you really can't see it because it's core spun. So I made these little like coils of texture, wrapping it around. Sometimes when I'm plying, if I'm not plying at the right angle, the yarn just wraps around from one ply to the other instead of coming at the perfect angle and making a nice little barber pole. But with this, you're intentionally going through and wrapping it like at a 90-degree angle. And so this is just a fun little art yarn. It's not very many yards. It was just an experiment to kind of break from that stuff. If I don't ever use it, that's fine because it's for the experience. I've been looking at a lot of knit collage projects. I think this would go nicely in one of their projects. They have a new bag pattern that's out that I think this would go nicely in. Maybe like a little neck piece. This yarn, people use this a lot in weaving too. So maybe if I knew a weaver, I would pass it this way. This is not finished yet. I've been holding on to it because I like to gather things together before I do like one big batch of finishing. But when I finish this, I will steam it. I'm not going to thwack this or soak it in hot or full it out or anything like that. I'm just going to gently steam it and kind of keep the integrity of all the texture that I've put in here. And so what I have on here is a single ply of that same fiber. And I was thinking about leaving it just as a single ply, but I'm not sure. I'm thinking about just plying with this, not doing any coils or what do they call them? I want to call them bumblebees, but they're not. Hives. Beehives. Or just doing it straight as like a 2-ply yarn just with this. I've just preliminarily wrapped them together just to see what that would look like, and it looks really cool, but then I also think this looks really cool, but also this isn't enough yardage to even do anything with, so technically I could just do both just for funsies and just break it in half and have like 3 yarns 3 different ways. And that's why I like doing stuff like this, because I overthink so many things sometimes. It's like, no, just have fun, you know. So but that's why I haven't steamed that yarn yet, because I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of this bobbin. I am leaning towards plying these together. I think that's what I'm going to do. And then, I don't know, as I'm saying, like sometimes you have to try things out loud and say them. So let me try that again. I'm thinking I'm just going to leave this as a single. That sounded better. I think I'm going to leave this as a single, and I would finish this by fulling it, which is like alternating between cold and hot water. And because a single ply yarn just doesn't have the needs a little bit more of a aggressive finish to keep everything together. And I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep this as that sounded better to me. I will still have this, and I can do something else with this. And this looks like a pretty decent amount. I haven't weighed this because it's got the cone on it, so I don't know how much this is, but yardage wise, lace weight goes a really long way. So I'm sure I'll find some, maybe I'll just do another bat. I don't have any of the silk stuff left. And so I keep forgetting, because I'm a bit of a thrift store person. I want to look for some 100% silk items in the thrift store and see if I can shred them and make some little bits to make art bats out of. And so maybe I'm going to save that for that project when I do find that. But I keep forgetting, and then I leave the thrift store. I'm like, oh, I wanted to look to see if they had any 100% silk, like scarves or a blouse or something that I can, or even like the knit collage stuff, they're doing a lot of like just cloth yarn, like just strips of cloth. So I need to be on the lookout for that stuff. Couple more things I wanted to show y'all. That's what's happening on my drop spindle and my Ashford traditional. We're gonna jump to the electric wheel, and that's this. This here. This is Black Smoke Fibers and I'm doing this on my Eel Wheel Nano, and I've been doing this for a while on my Eel Wheel Nano. This is what the raw fiber looks like, and this is just one of my mini hand painted indie dyed braids that don't really match anything else, and so I was just like, let me just put this on my Eel Wheel because I get a lot of, I can spin really thin on here, so I can make a little bit go a long way. And also this doesn't really go with anything else in my stash, so I like the color. It's called Starburst. Let me see. There we go. Yeah, it's called Starburst. It's 100% merino wool. And so if I spin it on my Ashford Traditional, there's a chance that it might match up with something else I've spun because I spin similarly on that. This is an unknown quantity here, so it just makes sense to just do a one-off on here. This one's taking me a very long time. This one has been a long time coming just because I don't reach for my eel wheel. If anything, probably most frequently as far as like out of the 10 days, if I spin for 10 days straight, I'm most likely to reach for my drop spindle just because it's accessible and I can do it quickly. Then my wheel, it used to not be my wheel, but now I've moved my wheel into the living room, and so I just get a lot more use out of it that way. And then in the last place would be my electric wheel, just because I don't care for the noise it makes. It's not terribly loud decibel wise, but it's just loud enough, like as far as like that electric whirring sound, that I have to wear headphones when I'm doing it. And so I can't really just, watch a TV show or play a video game, and because it's like that background noise, I like to put my headphones on. I don't want to hear it. And so I have to kind of think about, what am I going to do? Am I going to listen to an audiobook? My family's around. Do I want to engage with my family, or do I want to pull this thing out? Do I want to, watch a movie on the big screen, or do I want to watch a YouTube video on my phone? And so I'm trying to figure out how to fit this in my life a little bit more so I can use it. I like using it. But I'm just trying to make it make sense. And also I don't like projects to linger for a long time. So I'm just trying to kind of crack the code of what's going to work. I'm probably going to do just a 2-ply with this. This is something I would probably put, because I only have one braid, I probably put it in like a shawl or something. And then last but certainly not least, we're going back to the Ashford Traditional, the big wheel. And I told y'all I don't want to spin a bunch of solid. And so I was like, okay, what can I do that's not a pound of solid? With the understanding I just bought, what is it? I want to say 6 pounds, 1 pound each of solid colors with from RH Lindsay, thinking I'm going to spin all this solid yarn and then I'll have stuff to complement. No. Terrible idea. So I was just like, okay, let me do a 2-ply yarn, a combo spin. And this is some magenta I got from the RH Lindsay. And just, they're Corriedale. They just have dyed yarn, comes in all colors. And I have this. And this is I call it Knitwits. Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. They had like a big undyed sale, and I bought a bunch of fiber and sock blanks. And so it's 100% Peruvian Highland wool. And I used this to dye because I also like to dye for fun. And so last year I got some Easter egg dye on clearance after Easter, and I dyed a braid of the wool of the Andes, and then I had a bunch of dye left over, and so I just poured it all over this. And so there's just like teals and purples, and it's very, very pale because it was all the leftover unexhausted dye. And this is not really my color. I don't like pale colors. I don't like pastels. And so I was just like, do I over dye it? Do I just spin it anyway and figure something out? Do I run it through the drum carder with something? And this is what I'm going to do with this. Right now I have some of this on the wheel right now. Literally just started this, so I have almost a bobbin of this. I just split it in half because this was 100 grams, and then I weighed 100 grams of this, and so I'm just going to do 4 bobbins, 2 of this, and barber pole them together into a 2-ply. They're both comb top, Peruvian Highland wool and Corriedale. You know, they definitely go together. If you're thinking about getting this, I know some people are like Knit Picks is not infamous for like their super soft wool. And so I was nervous buying this because the Peruvian Highland wool goes into, I want to say, the pallet yarn, the fingering weight yarn, and they have wool of the Andes, which is Peruvian Highland wool. And those yarns are a bit rough, a bit scratchy. But this is relative. I mean, like, it's not, you're not getting kissed by angels, but it's not rough like you would think it would be rough. And I dyed it without any problems, no felting. You know, the key with that is, you know, don't over manipulate it. Wait till if you're using hot water, wait for it to completely cool down. And so this is spinning up really nicely. I'm getting like really, really, I'm going for thin just because I want to maximize my yardage. I want to do maybe like, I've been really wanting a sweater vest. And so I really want to, I don't know. It's just, I tend to spend thinner anyway. And so you can see my art yarn is like thin art yarn. So yeah, I think it's going to be nice. I think this is 200 grams. Yeah, this is going to make a nice amount of yardage for me. I can either make like a t-shirt or like a vest. I'm sorry, my words aren't coming together very nicely. But that's all I wanted to show you. That's all my spinning projects I'm working on. Next thing I need to do is work on what I'm going to use this for. For some reason, I get very much in my head of like, I don't feel bad. I won't say I feel bad, but I don't think about buying yarn. Like I buy yarn, I'm like, that's nice, I like it. I buy fiber, that's nice, I like it. But for some reason, when I start spinning, I'm just like, well, what are you going to do with it? And how much yardage are you getting? And you can't get more of this color. It's just like, that's why I want to do stuff like this, because it doesn't make that voice in my head. So I did a whole video like a year ago at this point of like, oh, what am I going to use my hand spun for? And I got all these patterns picked out. Haven't made any of those patterns. And then I had this idea that I was like, oh, I should always have like a hand spun project on the needles. Kind of took a break from that. So that's my next step. But also maybe deprogramming myself from that, because that's not really where I want to deal from, because that takes the joy out of spinning for me. But yeah, I'm just going to leave it here. I know a lot of y'all aren't spinners. Y'all seem to like it when I talk about my spinning. But if you are a spinner, let me know what you're working on. Have you tried spinning in the past and it wasn't for you? Have you always wanted to try spinning, but you feel like there's barriers to entry? Are you not interested in spinning at all? You're just spending time with me because, you just like me. Let me know. Comment, questions, all of that good stuff. Subscribe, hit bells. Hit whistles, blow the whistle, email me, candibknittin@gmail.com. I'm at Rulude on Instagram. The garden is coming in very nicely. So if you want to see some primo garden content, pop over there, as well as, the progress of me, spinning this and, little shots of my wheel and this, that, and the third. I'm also Candy Bee Knittin on what is that place called? Ravelry. I'm Rulude on Ko-fi. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm out here in the streets of Richmond, Virginia as well. So if you see me on the streets, say, hey, Candy B. Until next time, peace.